This part of the state of Michigan is a rich historical area that we're still digging into. We're here on the grounds of Fort Michilimackinac, and the person who's doing the digging is the curator of archaeology here for the state parks in this area, and that is Lynn Evans. Lynn, the dig I see is still going on here. What is the area we're looking at right now?
Well, what we're excavating is another unit of a row house. It would have looked like the one behind us, only this one was about twice as long. And this is the final unit of a 7-unit house. It's basically like a colonial condo.
Now let's talk about the fort and its historic nature itself. What was the significance of this place? Why was a fort built here to start with, and when was that?
The fort was built in about 1715 by the French, and it was built because this is the crossroads of the lakes. If you walk out that front water gate, you're looking at the Straits of Mackinac, which connect Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, and also if you go up around Mackinac Island, you're headed right towards Lake Superior. And so that was the whole purpose, was to control what was going on the lakes, particularly the flow of furs.
I see. Now, Lynn, I understand that at one point this fort was abandoned and, as a matter of fact, burned because the troops went elsewhere, and that was over to Mackinac Island.
Right. During the American Revolution, the British were here. Now, they became very nervous because of the success of George Rogers Clark down in the Illinois country, and they decided they would build a more defensible fort, and so they built Fort Mackinac, which is a stone fort on a hill on an island, very much more defensible than this little wooden palisade. They moved over a 2-year period of time, between 1779 and 1781.
Perry's Victory and International Peace Memorial is a priority for every visitor. This is the 3rd tallest national monument in the United States, which commemorates Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry's victory over the British fleet during the War of 1812. The results of the famous battle changed momentum for the Americans and the eventual outcome of the war. Completed in 1915, Perry's Memorial stands 352 feet above Lake Erie. Interred beneath the rotunda floor of the monument are the remains of 3 American and 3 British officers killed in the Battle of Lake Erie. On July 4th, 1936, the memorial was declared a national monument, symbolizing nearly 2 centuries of peace between the United States and Canada.
Turning point was about 2 hours into the battle. Perry's flagship, the Lawrence, had been battered into a complete helpless wreck. All of the guns on the engaged side had been knocked out of action, and she had suffered 80% casualties. 4 out of every 5 men had been killed or wounded. So Perry at this time faced really the dismal prospect of surrender. At that point in time, the Niagara, his 2nd largest ship, was just sailing up into action. So Perry made really a fateful decision. He took 4 men in an open boat, transferred from his blasted wreck over to a fresh ship, sailed in, and in 15 more minutes won the battle.
In 15 more minutes?
Right.
That's incredible. What would have happened if Perry had not won the battle?
The war would have dragged on. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because the Secretary of War issued instructions to General William Henry Harrison not to invade Canada until control of the lake was secured. The reason the 2 previous invasions of Canada failed along western Lake Erie is because there was no adequate line of supply. So if Perry had lost, we still would not have had that secure supply line, and the war would have dragged on and on out here in the Northwest.
And we might be singing "Oh Canada" right now.
That's quite a possibility.
Kind of a living museum, if I'm understanding right, in the sense that you have people here all year long, kids who come in who are on board and living on ship.
Yes, we're sleeping in excess of 10,000 on this ship a year right now. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, adults too. It's been a very successful program, and it's booked into the year 2002, I believe, at this point, and we're taking reservations.
Marvelous. Tell me about the vessel itself, because I understand this, I see on the outside all sorts of things, decals that look like they were involved in sinking a lot of the enemy's merchant marine.
Well, the ship is probably, it's the most decorated ship left from World War II, a submarine. It sank 23 ships and damaged 14. It was on 14 war patrols.
The Grand Island National Recreation Area is a 13,000-acre island about a half-mile off the shoreline of Munising. It measures about 8 miles north to south and 4 miles east to west. Its undisturbed beauty is an outdoor lover's dream come true.
There are about 23 miles of primitive roads and trails, most of which are located on the island's rim, that afford tremendous views of Lake Superior, of islands to the west in Lake Superior, and of the Picture Rocks National Lakeshore to the east.
Although the general public has restrictions on motor vehicles, there's a 2.5-hour interpretive bus tour that will take you around the southern part of the island. You can learn the history, geology, and botany of the island, all the while you're riding in comfort. If you prefer a self-guided tour, there are interpretive centers available to help you along. The initial visitor's contact station has an area to get you out of the elements, as well as offering important island information.
In that center, there are some interpretive signs that tell the history of Grand Island from 5,000 years ago when Native Americans lived here, all the way to the current time when the Forest Service is now managing it for the public.
Keep in that Dutch spirit and take a stroll to Windmill Island, where you just might get some of that fresh baked bread they make there.
Goedemorgen, we zijn blij dat jullie hier komen. Welcome to Windmill Island, we're happy that you're here.
Opened in 1965, Windmill Island offers you a wonderful taste of the Netherlands. The highlight is visiting the original Dutch windmill built in the Netherlands in 1750.
Windmill de Swan means swan or graceful bird or from near the water. It was originally built in 1750 about in the northern part of the Netherlands as a tower mill, such as you see it here up on a brick tower.
And no visit would be complete without the Klompen dancers. These select dancers perform every hour during the day right outside the windmill.
A windmill that doesn't work is like a windmill without its soul. They need to work, to grind, to produce a product.
We've been lighthouse keepers for 2 years now, 2 different seasons. We did it last year, 2 weeks in September, and now this is our second time.
Sunsets are #1 on the list. Look forward to that to the end of the day. We have a bench that we go out and sit on and watch that.
And every window you look out
Every
is a
window
beautiful,
is a beautiful view. But we also have had a lot of neat experiences with the people that come out.
Oh.
The people are wonderful that hike out here. They're interested in ecology and nature and just in lighthouses. And we've learned a lot from the people that have come out here that are really lighthouse buffs that know a lot.
And the school children that come out is just fantastic.
Yeah.
They'll bring classes out here of 30. In fact, one day we had 67 children. And
Little second graders.
Right. I give them a little talk before we go up into the tower and tell them a little bit about what life was like 100, 130 years ago and what it was like to be the child of a lighthouse keeper. And they just sit there spellbound. I mean, no electricity, no inside plumbing, and then I tell them no TV, no computers, and then when they get back to school, they draw pictures and write us little notes, and then they mail those back to the lighthouse. And we just got those yesterday, and we went out to dinner in town and sat and read those letters, and it's just...
The Great Lakes can sometimes be pretty treacherous seas to try to navigate. There are, of course, lighthouses that have lighted the ways for many years, but there are also other things that help to navigate these treacherous waters, the sandbars, the shoals, etc. And those were the lightships. With us right now is somebody who has sailed on Lightship 103. Don Thoreau, thank you very much for being with us. As a matter of fact, the ship behind us for a while was your home away from home, I understand.
That is correct. 22 months I served on her.
Now, it says Huron on it, but that was only one of the places that it served.
That is correct. Lightships didn't have names, they had numbers. This one was originally 103, and then in the 1950s it became the WAL 526, and then in 1965 it was changed to WLV 526.
Now, I understand about 1920 this ship went into service. What was the purpose of a lightship?
The purpose of a lightship was to be where it wasn't feasible to build a lighthouse. The purpose of this one, she had a main light, a radio beacon, and a foghorn.
How many men would have been aboard this vessel?
A full complement was 12, but it very seldom had a full complement. It would run anywhere from probably 9 to 12.
And we have one of the most marvelous collections of Fresnel lenses that are around us here. Matter of fact, I think this is unique, isn't it?
We believe we have more Fresnel lenses on display than any other museum in the Great Lakes area.
We should probably explain, first of all, what a Fresnel lens is. We use that kind of often. What was that?
Well, the Fresnel lens was developed by a French physicist by the name of Augustin Fresnel.
Okay.
And it's one that best utilizes the available light beams to project the light out just as powerfully as it can. Well, the lens behind us is the largest lens on the Great Lakes. It's a second-order Beehive Fresnel. It was placed at Standards Rock Lighthouse, which is 42 miles directly off Marquette, and during its heyday was known as the loneliest place in America because it was the most distant lighthouse from shore of any of the North American lights.
How big is that thing?
Well, the lens itself actually weighs about 2 tons. It stands over 10 feet high and over 5.5 feet wide. The lens, for example, from Standards Rock actually has 36 separate sectors or large pieces, and each one of those in turn has somewhere between 14 and a dozen separate prisms as part of it, and each one of those is freestanding.
Am I right that these were all ground by hand as well?
Well, the original glass was poured, and then it was given to French farm wives, each prism, and they would spend the winter polishing that prism and bringing it back into tolerance. And then in the spring, when they gave it to the lens manufacturer, it was so sharply polished that they would have to grind the edges down so the French manufacturers would not cut themselves as they assembled the lenses.